Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Gadi Schwartz coming to you from Los Angeles. And here's some of the stories we are watching tonight. A death threat and an envelope of white powder is sent to the Manhattan District Attorney just hours after former President Donald Trump warned about, quote, death and destruction if indicted. Then Gwyneth Paltrow is being sued for allegedly running down a retired optometrist on a ski slope. But she says it's the other way around. And on the fourth day of the trial, she's taking the stand. There have been two separate attacks on U.S. forces in Syria in the last couple of days, one of them killing an American contractor. Now the Pentagon has launched an airstrike.
We will always reserve the right to respond appropriately if our forces are threatened.
On this final day of Water Week, we have a special report looking at why millions and millions of children are without safe drinking water and how it's leading to thousands of deaths a day. And we're going to show you something that feels like the future might be moving way too fast. We've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence answering questions, but what about AI that can literally read your mind? Stay tuned for more. And yet another celebrity trial is dominating headlines, this time in Utah, all over a skiing accident in 2016 involving Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, she's accused of crashing into another skier, Terry Sanderson, and according to the lawsuit, causing a concussion, a brain injury, 4 broken ribs, and then fleeing the scene. But Paltrow says that is not what happened at all. She is countersuing, saying that Sanderson is exploiting her wealth and celebrity and claiming that Sanderson crashed into her, not the other way around.
Mr. Sanderson categorically hit me on that ski slope, and that is the truth.
And I'm sure that that's what you believe. I'm not saying
because it's the truth.
And Gwyneth Paltrow also claimed that this was not a hit and run, that she did leave her information at the scene.
I would not have left the scene without leaving my information, and my information was left. I didn't engage in risky behavior. I wouldn't with my children there or without my children there.
And Terry Sanderson was also in the courtroom today, but he hasn't spoken yet in court. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now. Maggie, we're so used to seeing Gwyneth Paltrow on screen, but today we saw her on the stand. She didn't seem to hold back. So how is this all playing out?
Yeah, so essentially, as you said, she answered every question really directly, and she was adamant. She said unequivocally, this guy plowed into me on his skis. In fact, she said he hit her from behind. She didn't even see it coming, and she said it multiple times. Even when the plaintiff's attorneys, who are the ones compelling her to testify, even when they said, couldn't you have been distracted by your kids, saying, Mommy, watch me ski, or haven't you said in interviews before, including they referenced a clip on Jimmy Kimmel, that you're clumsy and you, like, run into things. Isn't it possible that you were maybe behaving a little recklessly because you were excited to ski and you were excited to be at this resort? And she kept saying, no, this is what happened. He ran into me. Here's one answer that she gave kind of during one of those exchanges. Take a listen.
I was skiing and 2 skis came between my skis, forcing my legs apart, and then there was a body pressing against me, and there was a very strange grunting noise. So my brain was trying to make sense of what was happening. I thought, is this a practical joke? My mind was going very, very quickly, and I was trying to ascertain what was happening.
And she was kind of explaining there how during like a traumatic moment, sort of an adrenaline-fueled moment, your brain kind of slows down and you're recording almost every nanosecond and certain parts of what's happening to you, because they were asking if she could have seen him coming, if she heard something ahead of time. And she said, I'm just telling you what I remember. And then again, Gadi, she kept saying, despite what the plaintiff says, he is the one that ran into me. So 2 directly conflicting accounts. Gadi.
And as I understand it, Paltrow's team is now expected to take over next week, right? What can we expect from them?
Right. So the plaintiff has presented his case, as attorneys have, saying that she plowed into him. She has said the opposite when cross-examined. Now her team takes over, and 2 key witnesses who we have yet to hear from will be taking the stand, or at least are expected to take the stand, and those are her kids. Her daughter, Apple, and her son, Moses, who were 11 and 9, respectively, at the time, and were on the ski slopes, again, skiing with her and in front of her. They are going to give their account of what they say happened. Paltrow was very clear. They saw the aftermath. They did not see the crash, but again, she maintains the plaintiff crashing into her, and that's why she's countersuing for all of $1 plus attorney's fees in this case. Gadi.
Such a fascinating case. Maggie, thanks so much. And American military forces are on alert in the Middle East after 2 bases came under attack in the last 48 hours. The Pentagon thinks Iran is behind both attacks. And let's pull up a map real quick to show you what's going on. Yesterday, a drone attack killed 1 U.S. contractor in northeast Syria. In retaliation, President Biden authorized 2 separate airstrikes against Iranian-affiliated forces there. Then militant groups launched rockets at another U.S. base.
It's clear that these Iran-backed groups, these militant groups that Tehran is supporting, they don't want to see the United States presence in Iraq. They don't want to see it in Syria, and they're retaliating.
Well, what price does Iran pay for continuing to supply drones that target U.S. service men and women and kill Americans?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, they paid a price last night with these retaliatory strikes that the president ordered, and they'll continue to pay that kind of cost if they continue to strike and attack our facilities and our people.
And just yesterday, a U.S. general told Congress that Iran has been responsible for attacks against U.S. forces 78 times in the last few years. Iran has previously denied that and has not acknowledged these recent strikes. And if you're wondering, why are American forces still in Syria? Here's NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel to explain.
According to the Pentagon, an Iranian-made drone struck a coalition base in Syria, housing American troops and killing 1 American contractor, wounding 5 service members and another contractor. U.S. troops quickly responded with airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias also in Syria. We don't hear much about American troops in Syria, but they have been there for years in small numbers, right around 1,000 elite American special forces operating in this country. They are in the country and have been in the country fighting ISIS, trying to prevent ISIS from reconstituting. But Iran does not want their presence there. Iran sees the American military presence right next to Iraq, not far from Iran, as a threat to Iran's influence across the region. So it seems that Iran is stepping up its attacks against American troops to make it more painful for the Americans to stay in that country, with the hope that the Americans will pack it in and leave, allowing Iran to spread its influence even more across the region.
And now for an update on a story we brought you last week about that nuclear power plant leak near Minneapolis. Well, now authorities say they found another radioactive leak, and they are shutting down that nuclear power plant temporarily. Officials say there isn't any danger to the public, and that new leak was coming from a temporary fix to the original leak that happened way back in November. And NBC's Jesse Kirsch is following all of this for us. Jesse, people who live nearby, they are being told not to worry. They are safe, which is the same thing that they were told last week. But just to recap here, the first leak happened in November. The public wasn't told till March. Then another leak was detected. Are people having trouble trusting authorities here?
Yeah, so I think we've heard some mixed reaction, Gadi, out of that community. But here's what the company says is at the heart of this they believe. The company says that when this first leak happened, they put in place something that they've compared to a container. Just think of it as a bucket, essentially, trying to collect that water as it was leaking out of the piping. The company believes that that water, which was being collected, may have overflowed and thinks that may be what is causing this second leak. The company says that the piping at the center of this is part of the original infrastructure from this plant, and says that is more than 50 years old, Gadi.
And Jesse, any update on whether there could be any radioactive contamination into the river? You see those shots from the chopper there, and you can see how close the river is to this plant.
Yeah, obviously that's something that would be a concern for people in the community. Here's part of what was shared at a press conference from officials.
It's very unlikely that this tritiated water could reach the drinking supply. Monticello's intakes for its drinking water are actually upstream from this. Becker's intakes are actually across the river, so it's really not physically possible for that tritiated water to reach those wells.
The company says there's no drinking water or safety or environmental concerns, and local officials say the public water system is not impacted. Furthermore, Gadi, federal officials say that in small trace amounts, you can see this material, tritium, in groundwater worldwide, but says that it is something that doesn't go far when it is in the air, and says it is not something that can penetrate the skin, Gadi.
Jesse, thanks for keeping an eye on it for us. And now to a possible TikTok ban, a controversy that is pitting lawmakers against young voters, a tech giant against the government, and China against the U.S. We've been hearing from experts, from lawmakers in Congress and the White House, but so far we haven't heard from the average TikTok user, unless, of course, you're scrolling the For You page. And if you're not on TikTok, we did it for you. Take a look.
If this platform gets banned, we are in so much trouble, because that right, that freedom of speech that we have on this platform to educate other people is going to be stripped away from us.
We just might wake up the next day and TikTok will no longer be on our phones. What the hell are we going to do?
So you also got to remember that that is what the TikTok algorithm is serving up on its own app. But tonight, a new poll is also giving us a rare glimpse into how younger voters really think about this issue. And a majority of Gen Z voters, so those between the ages of 18 to 26, oppose a ban of the app. But it might not be as many as you think. And it turns out a majority of millennial voters, we're talking those between the ages of 27 and 42, support a ban. TikTok's active users here in the United States now tops 150 million this year, and Gen Z and millennials make up a large percentage of that. Let's bring in the brain behind this poll and so many other polls when it comes to the pulse of young voters, Director of Polling at Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics, John Della Volpe. John, this poll is for your company, Social Sphere. You study the attitudes of young voters more closely than anyone I know. I saw you tweet that this was an eye-opener for you. Why?
It was, Gadi. You know, so many times I've tweeted about the generational gap in America today, usually talking about, you know, Gen Z versus Gen Xers and baby boomers, right? But now what we found, for the first time in my research, that there's a significant generation gap between Gen Z and millennials. It's not really about values, but it's about technology and this exact issue that we're talking about with TikTok. You have a solid majority at this stage of Gen Z oppose a ban, while you have a majority of millennials at this stage support a ban. This is the first time we've seen such a disconnect.
Were you surprised by the majority of millennials that were supporting a ban here?
Well, not really once we dug into the numbers, Gadi. And what we found was that essentially 7 in 10 Gen Z voters are regularly using TikTok. They're using it for entertainment purposes. They're using it for dance videos, for prank videos, for outdoor videos, for some politics. They're also using it for like life hacks and advice. It's essential to who they are. They talk about it makes them feel united and connected to other members of their generation. And I think of it's Gen Z's version of like Seinfeld, you know, to what Gen Xers might have had. It's their daily entertainment. So for millennials, they just grew up in a different era. Technology moves so quickly, and they are far more connected to Facebook, to Twitter, and to Instagram to some extent.
Now, we saw the split about the ban, but there also seems to be unanimous concern over the app's ties to China, possible misuse of personal data, right? 60% of Gen Z voters are concerned about misuse of personal data versus 72% of millennials. I mean, it's almost like, hey, TikTok is fun, it's risky, but it's fun. Is that kind of what the poll is bearing out here?
Well, what we see as the poll evolved, Gadi, is we shared information similar to the information that lawmakers were sharing, yesterday during the testimony. And what we saw was that public opinion, even among Gen Z, is malleable. There was a net 11-point shift towards banning TikTok, even among Gen Z, once they learned information about the connection to China, about the extent to which China is collecting personal data, the extent to which China or ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, has the ability with their algorithms to shape public opinion, and also potentially to use that personal data, as blackmail potentially in the future. Those are some of the chief concerns that lawmakers have, and when we share those with members of the Gen Z voter population, opinion did shift.
Huh. You've talked about the political consequences, too, of banning TikTok. I think you said disrupting or censoring one of Gen Z's main entertainment outlets without clearly communicating the personal and national security risks would meet a certain backlash. I think that's a very important caveat there. Would you say that a TikTok ban could be a political suicide for President Biden if it's not communicated right?
I'm not willing to go that far, Gadi. I do think there is a pragmatism, and I don't think it would ever get to a point where there would be a ban without like an all hands on deck kind of communication of what's at stake in terms of national security. What we did find, though, just to give you some context, is that the risks associated with China are pretty low down the list when we ask members of Gen Z in terms of what the greatest risks are to America. So there has to be a lot of education, a lot of communication about the national security threats of China, and specifically the use of this technology, I think, before younger people would be ready to support some sort of ban. But at the end of the day, we did ask if it should happen, what would your opinion be? And we found more people disappointed than angry. So again, that gives me some sense that there wouldn't be that political suicide, perhaps, that you mentioned for politicians who supported the ban.
More disappointment than anger. Fascinating. John Del Volpe, thanks so much for the update. Looking forward to seeing what you find next.
Of course.
And tonight, the CEO of TikTok is finding himself in a bit of a pickle. You see, yesterday he spent nearly 6 hours testifying before Congress, trying to create some distance between the app and its Chinese owners. Well, today, that might have unraveled a bit after China stepped in and said it would strongly oppose a forced sale of TikTok. The Biden administration recently said it wants TikTok's Chinese owners, ByteDance, to sell the app or face a possible ban in the U.S. But China's Ministry of Commerce has said selling would undermine the confidence of investors from various countries, including China, to invest in the United States. NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has more.
Well, TikTok CEO was being grilled on Capitol Hill yesterday, trying to distance the company from China's government. Officials here decided to weigh in on the debate over selling TikTok to an American company by basically saying it'll never happen. Any sale or spin-off by TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, which is based here in Beijing, would be subject to Chinese law on the export of certain technologies, like algorithms, based on national security concerns. It's the algorithms that make TikTok so successful. Now, U.S. lawmakers say they're worried about national security, that China's government could force ByteDance to hand over user data or other information on Americans using the app. TikTok CEO says they never have and they never will, and he adds that forcing a sale would actually do little to address the fundamental concerns about data flows and access. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here yesterday said that China has never made those demands of a Chinese company doing business elsewhere, and accuses the U.S. of a, quote, xenophobic witch hunt in its pursuit of a TikTok ban. Now, ironically, TikTok is already banned here. There is a Chinese version of the app called Douyin. It's also wildly popular, and it's also heavily censored. Now, China's clear opposition on this issue leaves the Biden administration with new obstacles and no clear next move, whether to impose a ban on an app that is a big part of American culture now or confront Beijing.
TikTok banned in China. Important reminder there. Janice Mackey Freyer, thanks so much. And still ahead, we are keeping an eye on severe weather in the south, where a line of storms is bringing a strong potential for tornadoes. Bill Cairns will be here with the forecast. And remember these pictures from earlier this week? This is right here in California. So how is it possible that the state is still in a drought? We're going to explain coming up next. Now, we've got some breaking news right here out of L.A. The Los Angeles Unified School District and School Workers Union, SEIU Local 99, have finally come to an agreement. Now, the school district says that the new agreement not only increases salaries for roughly 30,000 people, but it also expanded health care benefits for part-time employees. The move comes just one day after school workers and teachers ended their strike, which kept roughly 500,000 students out of the classroom for 3 days. And a line of strong storms is sweeping through the south tonight. Tornado alerts are in effect from Texas to the Tennessee Valley. And just look at what's already happened in the town of Poolville, Texas. Right now, 15 million people are at risk of extreme weather, especially between Baton Rouge and Nashville. And another 17 million people are under flood alerts, as the northern side of this weather system is bringing flood threats from Oklahoma to Arkansas and all the way to Pennsylvania. Joining us now is NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, what are the storms looking like right now?
Gadi, up to this point, I mean, to be honest, this has been a lot more tranquil than we were fearing earlier today. It's not over with it. It only takes one tornado to make it a horrific evening. But up to this point, we haven't had any tornado reports, no damage, no injuries. Now, this tornado watch does go till midnight, so we still got a ways to go, and that's Central Time, too. So we have a ways to go until we get the all clear on this. We do have a couple really strong thunderstorms we're watching. One of them is just north of Greenville. I'll show you that in a second. We've been watching what we call a supercell just outside of Jackson, Mississippi. The supercells are individual storms. They're not on a line like this, and those are the ones that can produce really big tornadoes and what we call long track tornadoes, ones that are on the ground for a while. That's what we were fearful going in tonight. So far up to this point, we haven't had any of those. We have had a very strong thunderstorm. There is a tornado warning with this one. This is Greenville, Mississippi. So this is the Mississippi River going north here. And just to the north of this and towards Cleveland, Mississippi, this is a tornado warning. So I'm sure the tornado sirens are going off right now. Everyone's getting into their safe room. And of course, we'll let you know if anything materializes out of that. So as far as the risk, the storms are right now on this line here. So we've already gotten through this portion of the storm system. Now in the next couple hours, so we're about halfway through. So we still could get some strong storms. And if we get any strong tornadoes, it would be in Tennessee and Mississippi as we go throughout the next couple hours. And then it should be more of a wind damage threat towards northern Alabama and through the Nashville area. That's going to happen late. That'll wake people up probably a little after midnight Tennessee time. So as far as the flash flooding goes, Little Rock's under a flash flood warning. You had about an hour of just constant storms and a lot of lightning. So you're hopefully going to dry out here as we go throughout the overnight. We have one other flash flood warning there just north of Poplar Bluff. So the flash flooding could continue through the night, about 1 to 2 inches in general. But if you get any training of those thunderstorms, we could get a little more. And finally, Gadi, the other thing that's gotten worse instead of better, the snow forecast. This storm will be cold enough for a band of heavy, wet snow tonight. Chicago, probably see snowflakes, but not a lot of accumulation. But yes, Milwaukee, up to 1/2 foot of heavy, wet snow. Power outages could occur, and also areas from Cadillac, Michigan. That's possible 6 to 12 inches of Gadi. So imagine that, you're starting to enjoy your spring, beautiful weather, and then you wake up on a Saturday, your first spring weekend, 8 inches of snow.
Just as long as that's not in California. Is that what it's looking like the next couple of weeks here on the West Coast, too, again?
I'm sure you've already been hearing the buzz. People are already talking about the next storm. This one's going to be Monday into Tuesday. So let me give everyone, I don't want to just skip over your weekend, of course. So the weekend forecast, pretty quiet through much of the country. The Intermountain West, still ski country, is getting a ton of snow in Wyoming, Jackson Hole, Steamboat, the Wasatch Range, Provo, and around Utah. So Cascades are going to get some snow. But again, nothing really that's going to cause any harm out there through Sunday. So let me take you into our next storm. Fast forward all the way into Monday, and another big storm. This is not an atmospheric river storm. This is just a big old strong storm. It's going to have a really low central pressure, so it could be another big wind maker, almost like the last storm. And yes, as we go throughout Monday night into Tuesday, the blue shows you heavy snow in the mountains, and we're going to get some rain out of this too in the coastal areas. And yes, that's 18 to 24 feet of snow possible again, because, God, you know it. It's been cold in California. These snow levels are still unusually low for this time of year, and we will get the rain with a flood threat. This time it looks like more northern California. And I know you're talking about the drought debate in California. People have been asking me, so is California still in a drought? Only the northern portion of the state really is dry still. The rest of the state's gotten soaked.
We'll take the rain just as long as it's not another atmospheric river. NBC, Bill Cairns, thanks so much.
Thanks, Guy.
And the UN says that water is a basic human right and that everyone on Earth should have access to it. But right now, about 2 billion people don't have safe drinking water and nearly 4 billion don't have access to basic sanitation. It is a crisis so serious that the UN held its first water conference in over 45 years this week, and they made one thing very clear. We are not on track to meet our global water goals by the end of the decade, and because of climate change, the situation is only getting worse, especially for young kids across Africa. NBC's Stephen Romo has more.
Access to clean water affects much more than hydration. The UN says without clean water, not only are a child's health and nutrition at risk, their education and safety are as well. It's the tragic reality for roughly 190 million children right now in sub-Saharan Africa.
This is a crisis that hits the whole world indeed, but I mean more so in Africa.
Ruben Bahia is UNICEF's regional advisor of water, sanitation and hygiene, or WASH, for West and Central Africa. In a recent report, UNICEF found that these 10 countries are considered some of the most water insecure places on Earth.
Those countries are facing multiple priorities. We're talking about water supply here, but I mean, they also have priorities in terms of health. You have priorities in terms of education, in terms of livelihood of the people living there. So sometimes you have then these competing priorities in a fragile situation. Doesn't really help these sectors.
And it's where millions of children are facing a deadly triple threat of water-related crises: climate risks, sanitation, and related diseases. More than 65% of children in these 10 countries don't have basic sanitation services. Roughly 25% are forced to defecate out in the open. This lack of WASH can cause a number of deadly diseases like cholera. Around the world, more than 1,000 children under the age of 5 die from diseases like this each and every day. About 400 of those deaths happen in these 10 African countries alone.
And those countries, all of them, the 10 I've listed here, they are among the 25% most hit by the climate crisis.
The extreme weather events linked to climate change are making unpolluted drinking water harder and harder to find. Between 2001 and 2018, nearly 3/4 of all natural disasters were water-related. That includes floods and droughts. Zara is a climate activist from Chad, where hundreds of thousands of people were affected by catastrophic floods just last year.
We all deserve clean water. We all deserve water. And I know that some of our region in Chad, they don't even get water. I can give you an example of the water that people in my neighborhood is drinking, something like that. And I hope you can see the color change and many things. In Chad, if you want to have clean water, you have to spend hours and hours. That's the reason why most of the girls, they abandon school for searching water. They face many problems when they go searching water. They maybe get raped, violated.
UNICEF says this water crisis could be fixed by the end of the decade, but it comes with a cost, an estimated $114 billion a year at least.
Time is not for promises. Time is for actions. If all of us, we join our voices, we can move things. We can change many things.
We thank Steve Romo for that. And coming up, some utterly fantastic news out of Brooklyn. NBC's Maya England will have the happy ending for that cow who really got on the move earlier this week. But first, you got to see this. No, you are not watching a deleted scene from the movie Madagascar. This is actual footage of a zebra who escaped from a zoo in South Korea. Sero, the zebra, broke out of the children's Grand Park Zoo in Seoul. He then decided to take on the sights of the city, spending the day galloping through alleyways and street traffic. He was captured safely after a few hours and brought back to the zoo. Officials say Sero's behavior changed after he lost both of his parents, but they've got a new plan to keep his spirits up: a girlfriend. So we're going to wish the best of luck to the new couple. We'll be right back. And it's time now for some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Police are investigating a death threat made to Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan district attorney. His office received a letter today that contained a small amount of white powder, along with the message, quote, "Alvin, I'm going to kill you." Officials say the substance was not dangerous, but there have been security concerns surrounding Bragg's office because of its investigation into former President Trump. In Virginia, the police officer who fatally shot 37-year-old Timothy Johnson was just fired. Now, that shooting happened last month during an alleged shoplifting incident where Johnson was unarmed. The county's police chief says authorities are still investigating why shots were fired. And King Charles was supposed to be on his way to France this weekend for his first state trip as a new monarch, but that is not happening because of those intense protests that continue throughout the country. Last week, the French government pushed through a new pension reform plan, and now union leaders are calling for a national day of action next Tuesday. And Disney World has reached a tentative deal with union leaders to up their minimum wage from $15 to $18. If approved, the raise would take effect by the end of the year. Now check out these stunning images. Last night, the northern lights were visible way further south than they usually are. That's because of a severe geomagnetic storm that set off dancing auroras all the way down to New Mexico, Oklahoma, North Carolina. And if you missed it, don't worry. Experts think this could get more common over the next few years. And President Biden has been making the rounds in Canada today alongside Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The two debuted a border agreement today that will turn back asylum seekers who enter their countries without authorization. And this comes as the amount of migrants crossing the northern border is reaching record highs. And Monica Alba joins us now from Ottawa, Canada, for more on this. Monica, break down the specifics of this new policy for us, and when does it kick in?
Gadi, it takes effect almost immediately, just some hours from now. Technically, it will be the new rule starting after midnight Eastern, and this really will apply to border crossings going both ways. This is for migrants who are coming from Canada into the U.S. and the U.S. into Canada. This new agreement will essentially allow both countries to turn those asylum seekers around and send them back to either country. And this comes really after Canadian officials had called for a stepped-up update to this 20-year-old agreement that was applying to official ports of entry where migrants were arriving, but it didn't cover unofficial border crossings. And they have seen a real uptick in that in the last couple of months. And so that is why the U.S. and Canada have agreed now to update this new agreement. And in exchange, Canada is going to allow for 15,000 slots for migrants to apply to be able to stay here in Canada as a result of this in the next year. Gadi.
Do you anticipate any legal challenges to what we're seeing today?
It doesn't seem like it. And again, the Department of Homeland Security and the Canadian government is already preparing for this because they say what they took a look at with the agreement that already does exist. But of course, this is something that immigration rights and advocates, even some Democrats, have spoken out about, saying they feel this is too restrictive. President Biden and Prime Minister Trudeau, for their part, say they believe this will encourage safer, more humane legal migration. And they spoke to really some of the treacherous conditions that some of these migrants have had to face up here on the northern border when they're traveling through these freezing forests to try to seek asylum. Gadi.
And Monica, what other policy issues did Biden and Trudeau talk about today?
Yeah, migration was definitely at the top of the list, but there was a lot else to deal with. For one, there was Haiti, the humanitarian crisis there, when we're seeing this uptick in kidnappings, in gang violence, and in deaths. This is something the U.S. has asked Canada to take more of a leadership position on. So the two were able to talk about some other efforts they're going to be able to do. And then also the modernization of NORAD, which is something that really became significant in the last couple of months with that Chinese spy balloon and the aerial objects that were shot out of the sky in the weeks that followed in coordination with Canada. That's something where the U.S., again, would like to see Canada do a little bit more to protect North American airspace. Those are just some of the issues here, Gadi, but really the president stressing this is a key relationship and a visit to Canada, his first since taking office, that he really has been wanting to do now for these last few years.
Monica Alba, thanks so much. And how well do you know the news? Our friends on Snapchat are putting that to the test. Kicking off our Stay Tuned This Week segment is one of my very favorites from our own Lily Umana. It's something that we call Lily on the Street.
She's going to get it all. The CEO of this social media company testified before Congress as they consider a ban on the app. Is it TikTok or Snapchat? I'm going to say TikTok. It's TikTok. Guinness World Records announced the world's most popular artist. Can you guess who it is? Beyonce? It's not. Miley Cyrus. It's not Miley Cyrus, unfortunately. It's The Weeknd. 2 car brands recalled over 500,000 vehicles due to a fire risk. Can you guess what the car brands are? Mercedes. No. No? Jeep. No. My dad is going to be really disappointed. Kia. Yes, that's what it is. Yes. One more. Toyota. No. Who said that? Starts with an H. Hyundai. Yes. Protests were held in this country after the president raised the retirement age. Is it France or Italy? Italy. It's France. This celebrity took the stand in a trial involving a ski accident. Oh my God, no. Gwyneth Paltrow. It's Gwyneth Paltrow.
Now, I totally would have missed the weekend one there. Maya England is now here to chat with some of the other stories we've been seeing trending this week. Maya, let's start with the brutal reaction to the new I Love New York logo. Bloomberg described it as an iconic failure. You're in New York. What do you think?
It is a brutal reaction, Gadi. So that original logo was designed in the 1970s, and this new we is meant to be inspiring and like create community support and friendship. Some people like it. It seems like a lot of people don't. We actually asked our Stay Tuned viewers what they thought, and some of them had to say the new logo design is bad. Someone else said stop changing it, and my personal favorite, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Gadi, what do you think about the design?
I mean, I could go either. To be honest, I'm so distracted by those plants. How do you keep those plants alive behind you? What's the secret?
I have to say, I'm at my mom's house celebrating her birthday, so this is all my mother's work.
Oh my gosh, the happiest birthday to your mom. Those plants are amazing. One other story that's pretty amazing is this happy ending that we saw with that runaway bull in Brooklyn. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is a great update from a story we told you about earlier this week. There was a 4-month-old calf that escaped a slaughterhouse and ran the streets of Brooklyn. Well, his name is actually Stewie now. Stewie was brought back to the slaughterhouse, but that viral video caught the attention of Skylands Animal Sanctuary in New Jersey. They saw it, they took Stewie in, and so now Stewie's going to live the rest of his days in a peaceful sanctuary.
Hopefully in a good mood, right? No?
That's a good one. That's a good one, Gadi.
All right, I'm done. Maya, thanks so much. Good seeing you.
Thanks.
And the U.S. Postal Service is honoring the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. LX News contributor Greg Bledsoe takes us to New Orleans for that story.
Some people you can paint and the light just comes right through. She did have a kind of a twinkle in her eye. Beautiful eyes. And when I got the call, I was just thrilled. I was really thrilled because Ruth Ginsburg, she is an American icon. My name is Michael Dees. This will be the 25th postage stamp I've done for the U.S. Postal Service. These are some of the stamps I've done. This is the first stamp I did was Tennessee Williams, and then Marilyn Monroe, Betty Davis, I did that one, and Lewis and Clark, there's Edgar Allan Poe, Bogart, Duke Hanamoko, Cary Grant, Thornton Wilder. I think it's 6 or 7 covers for Time magazine. This is the logo I painted for Columbia Pictures. George Bush and Gerald Ford. One of the easiest I ever had to do was Ronald Reagan. We couldn't miss. One of the most difficult I ever had to do was Audrey Hepburn. If you were off by just the tiniest little hair, it didn't look like her or it lost something.
Have you ever gotten a letter in the mail with a stamp on it that you painted?
Yeah, it's a kick. it's a kick. It's a real thrill. Yeah. You see a particularly nice postage stamp, it kind of pulls you in. It's like a little, miniature piece of art, if it's good. Okay, this is a photograph of Ruth Ginsburg by Philip Birmingham. And then from this photograph, I did a series of sketches. The most difficult thing, believe it or not, was her collar. She had her dissent collar. When she was going to disagree with the rest of the court, she wore this one specific collar. Trust me, there's something about that collar. It's geometric, and if you don't get the geometry just right, there's a ripple effect. If you try to fake it, it looks like you're trying to fake it. So the Paltrows they have a research company that looks into things, and they found somebody in Europe who made a replica of it. And then this is the finished version. That took about 2 weeks at least to paint just that collar. Looking at their face either draws me in, and I get interested, like, who was this person? What were they really like? Regardless of how you might perceive her politically, like, she's the real deal. I mean, she's so straightforward and such a clear thinker and, not flamboyant with words, very common sense.
How wrong it is to judge people on the basis of what they look like.
She made a tremendous difference in women's rights. One of the things I try to do in the stamp is to get a little hint of a twinkle in her eye, like a little bit of a wry wit. I think she did have a kind of dry, subtle sense of humor to add something to it. I don't want to just copy a photograph. I mean, anybody can do that, but I wanted to give it a little sparkle and a little bit more of a smile. This sort of delicate-looking elderly woman was such a powerhouse. I hope it captures her in the best light possible. I think if it's good and well printed, people notice. I mean, a good stamp, you'll remember it.
Thanks, Craig. And coming up on the future of everything, we've got another mind-bending story on artificial intelligence with an emphasis on the mind part, because it looks like AI is getting a whole new set of abilities that look a lot like telepathy. We're going to show you next, so stay tuned. And what if we told you that AI could read your mind without you ever saying a word? We're talking as close to computer telepathy as we've ever seen. And you're about to see just that. Computers able to project the very pictures you're looking at just by reading the activity in your brain. NBC's Jake Ward has more. Jake?
For a decade, scientists have been pursuing the ambition of being able to read our minds using computer technology. But now, because of the rise of artificial intelligence, teams around the world are making progress on that goal. On the campus of the National University of Singapore, Professor Helen Zhao and a team of researchers say artificial intelligence is letting them see, well, a version of our thoughts. This subject demonstrated the process.
Our colleague, Eric, right now is inside the scanner.
Using a database of fMRI scans, the AI first got to see what people's brains looked like as they viewed more than 1,000 photos. Then it was shown only brain scans as the subjects looked at new photos. Using a special language of brain activity the team developed, an image generator called Stable Diffusion then tried to recreate what each new photo had shown.
Wow, so as long as I have seen it and you know the patterns of my brain, then the AI will read that out of my brain.
Yes, exactly.
Scientists have pursued this for years, but AI makes the difference. Here's a giraffe shown to a subject. Now, ready? Here's the image the AI created. And it is sometimes very different between people. Here's the original image of a grassy field. Now here's 3 different versions generated from 3 different people's brain activity. Now, what you're seeing is a recording of previous scans, not a real-time demonstration. And this process is slow, it requires an expensive machine, and it has to be individually tailored.
So unless you have taken a long time to train the model on an individual, it doesn't work.
Yes, at least at this stage, but we're trying to generalize across subjects in the future.
And that future is upon us. At the University of Texas, another team is learning to pull word sequences using a similar technique. And a multi-university team last year found that in fMRI tests, these regions of the brain reliably predicted whether a subject leaned liberal or conservative. It is all part of a grand scientific ambition to decode and maybe even transmit thought, to restore lost sight and hearing, to observe consciousness itself. But research is one thing.
I worry that it quickly leaves that realm of well-meaning scientists to commodification of deeply personal information about people.
The last 30 years have seen an explosion of new brain tech companies and patent applications. Now, as AI makes the text smaller and more powerful, Duke law professor Nita Farahani worries it'll be used to not just read minds, but judge them.
This is a world in which not just your brain activity is being collected and your brain states from attention to focus is being monitored, but people are being hired and fired and promoted based on what their brain metrics show.
Even for the team leader in Singapore, the prospect of a corporate use of this technology without privacy laws in place is too risky.
Are you the kind of person that would want to wait for better governance before you let somebody decode your brain?
I might be the person who wants to try. I think once there's a commercialized product, for example, then I would like to wait a little bit.
Mind reading, with all its unthinkable promise and peril made real. Now, experts argue that the ethical issues here are vast and are going to have to be dealt with extremely quickly. But there is also, of course, enormous scientific questions here. For one thing, it's the difference between how two people see a scene that really has scientists baffled. Is it the AI kicking out some sort of algorithmic randomness, or is there truly a fundamental difference to how you and I perceive reality that is going to somehow be revealed in this as scientists continue to use AI to pursue the very nature of consciousness? Back to you.
Fascinating report. Jake, thanks so much. Coming up, one girl's efforts to keep a stranded octopus alive until help arrived. It's a rescue that's pretty tentacool, if you ask me. That story coming up next. And this next story is incredible. It is about a man who has risen above challenges in his life to create some pretty amazing art. And you won't believe how he does it. Jolie Sherman from our NBC affiliate WVIT has tonight's The Best of Us.
I've been painting this for, I want to say, like 6 to 8 months.
Meet Ryan Rosario, an artist who can bring a blank canvas to life. But this artist uses a different kind of technique. Ryan holds his paintbrush, not in his hand, but in his mouth. Every dip into the paint, every stroke of the brush, every wash.
Being a person that was so active and an able-bodied person, that all of a sudden you can't move, is very traumatizing.
In 2007, Ryan suffered a diving accident, which left him paralyzed from the neck down. He was 21 years old at the time. A time when he was just, quote, figuring himself out. But he would go on to do more than that. Ryan discovered himself, an artist with a hidden talent.
Painting to me is kind of like my way on telling the world that I'm here.
And he knows how to make a statement. After all, the brush is between his lips. After his accident, Ryan taught himself how to paint, and he plays with vibrant colors, different subjects, and unique materials.
I do love to do sneakers as much as I do painting. So far right now, I think I've sold over like 20 to 25 pair of sneakers.
That's on top of the 100 paintings he sold across the country, from Connecticut to California.
If you look around the room, Ryan's artwork is a reminder that anything is possible. He says he can't go a day without painting because it's a hobby that's helped him heal and find so much joy.
Painting has also helped him cope after losing his wife to cancer in 2021.
She was my biggest motivation. So if she was here right now, I know that she would be so proud of me.
Today, Ryan is a single dad of 3. But every day, he teaches his family and his supporters a powerful message.
I've always seen my disability as my superpower, because, other people think that your life is over just because you're disabled. Well, I'm here proving to you that just because you're disabled, your life continues in a whole new different way. But, so you have to find your way on making your disability your strength.
What an incredible report. And before we go, we have this story of an amazing rescue in Washington state. A little girl found a giant octopus on the beach and gave her quick thinking, and it helped save her life. Brady Wakiyama from King 5 News in Seattle has more.
Looks like it might be ready to try to make a break for it.
Swift action taken by a group of people with one mission, getting this giant Pacific octopus back in the water.
They can't survive out of water for more than several minutes. It collapses their gills.
That's Annie England with the Padilla Bay Reserve. She got a call from the ranger at Bayview State Park in Mount Vernon last Wednesday about an octopus stranded on the beach.
I wasn't anticipating finding such an alive, healthy octopus.
England credits a little girl who was visiting the beach with her family for keeping the octopus alive.
She was taking water with her little sand bucket and she was filling it up and she was pouring it on top of the octopus.
England says the actions taken by that little girl is the best thing you can do if you ever encounter an octopus out of the water.
We would never encourage the public to try to move an octopus or touch it, but definitely pouring water on it and calling a local aquarium or organization that works with marine animals.
She says finding an octopus alive out of the water is not common and says this is the first octopus rescue she and her team has ever done.
We had to be very conscientious of where we were putting our hands while we were moving the octopus. Thankfully, we were able to get it into the bin, and then we were able to drag it out.
Octopus Rescue.
England says she's relieved the mission was a success and hopes the octopus doesn't have to ever experience something like this again.
What a massive octopus. Thanks, Brady, for that report. And that does it for us tonight. Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you next week. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.